Merry Christmas! That's all I can think of to say. Hello! We're back! It's real! We're Cookie Pocket! And
Yay.
We are recording, and we are making the specialist holiday of all the specialist holidays. Today, we are joined by the same goobers that you always enjoy listening to on your rides to work. In the comfort of your basement. On the plane, in a train, and just laying down in your bed. And today we're talking about, well, first of all, how are you guys? Feels like it's been a million years, but it actually has been half that time probably. How are you guys?
Well, I'm doing okay. Keeping busy, but excited to be back for seasonal engagements here and ready to roll.
Yeah.
Doing okay. I'm gonna do some shameless promo right now. I'm freelancing in the Baltimore DC area, so if anybody needs a PA or a grip or dare I suggest a sound recordist on their set, just contact me through the channels in the comments down below on YouTube at least. But yeah, doing okay. Happy to be in the season, and not coming off of a ton of schoolwork and studying at this time of year. And yeah, ready for our 3 seasonal specials as we have done for, I guess this is our 4th year now.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Man.
And how are you, Mitchell?
Oh, busy. It feels like, I am somehow still working at my school, so I do feel like I am at school, but now I'm doing it in a faculty capacity. But now it's like, it still feels like I'm in school, but I'm not doing schoolwork. But it's like there's a lot of busy things, a lot of things you don't realize that take up a lot of time. And like, you have to be like earlier for events and later for events, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Behind the scenes work. It is nice not to think about programming for a little bit, but I'm sure it'll come around the corner once again to haunt me in the coming year. So, So, how special is this holiday special? Pretty special. The movie is Scrooged, and you have to tell people that it's Scrooged with a D because people will get confused. No, it's not A Christmas Carol. No, it's not Scrooge. It is Scrooged. And is it an adaptation? Probably, sort of, not really. It's based on the novel, but it's not really adapting it, but it sort of is. And it's a 1988 American Christmas fantasy comedy film directed by Richard Donner. You're supposed to laugh. It's supposed to be funny.
Ho 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 ho! Richard Donner.
Based on the old Charles Dickens novel everybody fell in love with back in the 1800s. And it's a modern retelling with Bill Murray as Frank Cross, who's a television executive, and he's visited by, you guessed it, 3 ghosts. Not spirits, but ghosts. That's what we call them here in America. And then on Christmas Eve, to help him regain the Christmas spirit, it also has Karen Allen, who we know from the latest Indiana Jones film, because no one knows that Karen Allen is from the original, and people just think, oh, that's cute lady with Indy. Freaking a lot of random like cameos in this, like Robert Mitchum. He's sort of like a sort of main character, but not really. You have Michael Pollard and Carol Kane, who apparently was crying a lot on the set for multiple reasons. But this is distributed by Paramount, which is very good and very bad, and also very ironic. So, what do you guys think of the film?
Well, I think it's interesting you mentioned the cameos, because I did want to mention, I've seen this movie multiple times, but this is, I think, the first time I've seen it all in one go. This is a movie that crops up all the time on cable around the holidays. So in past years, I'd seen it in bits and pieces, and we might like record it one year, but we started maybe 20 minutes in, so I missed the first scene and had no idea who Elliot Loudermilk was when he showed up throughout the movie. And this is, I think, the first time I've noticed how many little cameos there are. And a lot of them don't really have anything to do with the holidays. They're just famous people. Like, at the beginning, Miles Davis is a street performer for A Shot.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't pick up on that.
It is a little strange. But the movie as a whole, I think, I described it in my Letterboxd review as being ultimately very okay. I think it's very watchable. It's like the perfect 3-star movie where you're like, yeah, that was good. That was fun. That was okay. I'm going to go eat more mashed potatoes because it's Christmas. It is a film I kind of feel a little strangely about because it seems like I should love it because I love A Christmas Carol. It's my favorite Christmas story. I think Bill Murray is very funny, especially kind of this phase in Bill Murray's career where he's kind of on top of the world and can do as much improv as he wants, and people are always going to find it funny. I like Richard Donner more or less. I mean, he's a director who's done lots of kind of meh material, but when he hits, he hits. I like Danny Elfman, who's delivering the most Danny Elfman score of all time here. When your movie starts with la 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 la, you know it's a Danny Elfman score. And yet, at the end of the day, I come out thinking that it's just sort of all right. I think that instead of being an adaptation of A Christmas Carol, and I think you kind of nodded to this, Mitchell, it's not really an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. It kind of feels like it's a Bill Murray gets to improv vehicle that's had A Christmas Carol kind of wedged into it. So the Christmas Carol story kind of peeks out here and there, but it's kind of weirdly at odds with what Bill Murray is doing. And he doesn't seem to be taking anything seriously, which is par for the course with him. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think here it's kind of falls in the middle. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's all right. But I know there are people who consider this like a hardcore Christmas classic and watch this every single year. And I don't really think I'm that kind of fan.
Fair enough. I think I'm closer to you than I am to those that call it a bona fide Christmas classic. But I also really love Bill Murray across all of his eras, from the 80s, more comedy-heavy things like Ghostbusters through his many films with Wes Anderson. And this is apparently the 35th film starring Bill Murray that I've seen. So I've seen quite a bit of his work, and I think probably the most watched actor for me, at least according to my stats on Letterboxd. So, and I enjoy him a lot, even here, even in his films that I don't think are great films. But a lot of the time, it didn't feel like to me that he was acting very much. It felt like oftentimes he was doing improv absent of like acting a character, in the sense that a lead actor today might research and rehearse and prepare a character with human qualities and a backstory and whatnot, beyond the obvious flashbacks that mirror Scrooge's early life, standing in for his early life. I found this to be a rather deranged Murray, if you will, where he's just kind of shouting and often exhibiting features of a psychopath and this like absence of empathy in a way that's almost more unnerving than if he were just really mean to people, the way that Scrooge is in more standard adaptations. But so it's just kind of uncanny and strange, and I wouldn't begrudge anyone else if they found that a total turnoff. But I like Bill Murray, so it didn't really bother me. It's more of a point of observation for me. I landed on a 3.5. I agree that it's kind of in this space of watchable holiday film, not exactly exemplary in many respects, though. I really liked the sort of Marley scene stand-in with the way that they realized this kind of like zombified guy, and however they did the whole like arm fall off thing and the golf ball coming out of his head and the mouse, and I thought that was very, very neat makeup and effects. And I really love the monologue, which I'm sure we'll talk about more, but I think it kind of distinguishes itself from A Christmas Carol traditionally because he takes it a step further when he insists that this doesn't have to be a once a year thing, this sense of community or this sense of being bigger. I think the way that he sort of explicitly pursues that point is meaningful, and perhaps tonally at odds with 80% of the movie, but I still think it's great. So I'll give it points there. And Karen Allen is great here too. And it's maybe unbelievable that Bill Murray kind of, spoiler alert, just like gets her back on a whim at the end of the film. And I think probably the most common criticism I've seen of this is how unbearable people find Murray's character for most of the runtime. And I get that, but it didn't bother me. So 3.5. I enjoyed it. Glad to have watched it.
Well, makes me think. See, I didn't actually write my review yet, but I'm gonna decide
A common
live.
trend for you these days.
Hey,
Oh no.
have you seen Christian? Have you seen the Instagram? Have you seen how much it's popping off? I don't think you have.
No, I haven't.
I don't think
I
you
haven't
have.
either.
Is it really?
I don't think you've been seeing the number of times I've been posting. It's pretty great. Sarcasm.
You're
So
wow.
I will decide live on air because I totally thought of this ahead of time, and I decided that it would be really cool to see what I would rate it live on air. And we'll do a we'll do a 3.5. We'll do 3.5.
Okay.
We'll do 3.5.
I knew it.
I
knew it.
Christian is like we were saying, but so yeah, I don't think this is a Christmas classic. I don't think it is, and I think the reason why is it does fall into itself as like a satire, and as it just pokes fun at itself so often, and it's so ironic that it kind of loses any merit in the emotion department, at least from like an impactful way. Like there's a lot of emotional moments, and there's like definitely character investment to be had, but like overall it's not really it's kind of just like it takes you out of it so often, and like pokes fun at the fact that it's like, it's a 1-to-1 like comparison all the time to the original story, and having like the set and everything. Like honestly, I understand, like, at least with having the set towards the end, it made a huge difference, and I think it made the monologue a lot more impactful. Other than that, I kind of got frustrated and annoyed by the fact that it was constantly referred to and constantly used as, like, a part of telling Frank's so-called, like, character progression, because Frank does not have any subtlety at all. When they were like going through from the original script to the final script, they were basically taking out everything that was subtle, and Donner was completely committed to the fact that it had to be like a bombastic, like yelling and has to be like a huge, just like wild adventure ride of random crap happening with Danny Elfman in the background, and that's like pretty much what the movie had to be. It had to be similar in a lot of ways to like a Tim Burton film, I guess. And I think that it's a way, as we say in the military, it's a way, it's not the way, but it's a way. And I think that is definitely like this type of circumstance. And I think, it really is up to you how much you like Bill Murray, basically, is kind of what it boils down to when it comes to investing in Frank's character. But I think all the supporting characters are great. I think like the love interest and the ghosts and the Jacob comparison, like all that is really great. I think those were really great casts across the board, especially his assistant. I think it's Ailfree Woodard. Ailfree Woodard, I think, is the actress's name. She did a fantastic job, and I think that translated really well in the modern era. And I guess the TV part of it too. But other than that, it just feels very, very gimmicky. It feels very gimmicky, and on top of Murray ad-libbing, it's just very, like, hard to just commit to the movie and be like, yeah, this is a Christmas classic. This is an actual film with a story that should be invested in. So it's like, that's why I came to a 3.5, because it is funny. It is funny as hell, and I think that it's really hard to argue that. And I think it's just, the memes are funny, but it does not make the film like a cool alternative. It has no merit of being an adaptation, really, in my head. But that kind of leads into my first thing. What makes this film lesser, like quote unquote lesser, compared to the Christmas Carol adaptations we're familiar with, and what makes this film an improvement?
Okay. Well, in regard to lesser, I think I'll say that things that make it lesser are that it doesn't really seem to care about the Christmas Carol story. I think this is a classic. This is like a classic movie star vehicle, where we don't see this as much anymore. And there's been some comment on this by people like Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino. But the classic idea of a movie star is they're an actor who becomes so big that their name on the poster is the appeal. Doesn't even really matter what the movie's about. People are going to go to see Bill Murray do his Bill Murray thing. And so kind of how you mentioned, Christian, he's not really acting here because the appeal isn't Bill Murray in a modern take on Ebenezer Scrooge. The appeal is Bill Murray, and what's he going to do this time? But that means that kind of everything in the movie sort of feels like, who cares? We're just kind of goofing around. And I think that means that the Christmas Carol story, like the actual beats of A Christmas Carol, because in A Christmas Carol, the ghosts all visit him back to back to back in a single night. Whereas in this movie, there's a lot of breaks in between. And that's kind of where the original story in this, not even kind of, that is where the original story in this movie happens, is the breaks in between the ghosts. And the ghosts kind of feel like they're there because, well, he's being Scrooged. We kind of need the ghosts there. But it feels a little rushed. In particular, the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, I spend a longer time showering in the morning than this movie spends on the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Like, he's there, and then I want to say, like, 5 minutes later, yeah, it's certainly not 10, that bit is done. And that is usually the quickest paced part of a Scrooge adaptation. Even in the original book, it's the briefest stave. But still, it very much feels like, and the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, because we need to do him. All right, let's get to the ending, and hopefully Bill will say some funny stuff. In terms of what makes it superior, I don't think there's anything that makes it a superior Christmas Carol adaptation, but I do think this movie does have things to offer that I think are interesting and fun and lend it that 3 out of 5. I do think Bill Murray's really funny. I think there's a lot of gags in this that I really didn't understand when I was a kid watching this on cable that really work for me now. Like when the people in the homeless shelter mistake him for Richard Burton. I think that's hilarious now. And I had no idea who Richard Burton was when I was like 8. I think the design is really neat. I love kind of the look of like the inside of Frank's building where everything's made of these like black reflective surfaces. I think the ghosts look really neat. I'm not really big on all the performances from the ghosts, mainly present, but their designs are fun. Scarlett Johansson's dad does a great performance as Christmas Past. I think it's a well-designed, well-executed movie. It's just it ultimately comes to a good, you did a good job, thumbs up, rather than a sublime adaptation.
Yeah, some of the points that I enjoyed, I wouldn't even go so far as to say that it makes the film better, but I just think it's an interesting choice or a way to vary it. Like, I sort of perceived Elliot Loudermilk and Grace, his assistant. It felt to me like they were splitting the character of Cratchit between those two characters. Which was interesting to me, and I like how the utter madness of the ending when Loudermilk comes in with a shotgun and is like about to kill Frank. That was great. That was so fun. Oh my gosh. Christmas Carol definitely doesn't have that. But I enjoyed it. And in terms of things that I think are lesser, again, I hesitate to say that this is explicitly a worse aspect of this adaptation, but I do think there are a lot of things here that they would never screen now, especially with, I still don't know all the details around it, but I know there was some sort of set that Bill Murray was on that he got kicked off because he was being inappropriate in some way, or someone was offended by something he did. I've almost intentionally avoided reading about that because I don't want my enjoyment of him to be disturbed. But little things like during like sort of at the outset of his big monologue towards the end of the film, when one of the scantily clad background dancers like pulls him in by the tie and kisses him because it has to happen, and the whole scene about the nipples being visible, and the office Christmas party when the one woman's like photocopying her butt and giving him a picture of it and asking him to wink wink nudge nudge get Chinese food with her. I can't imagine any of these scenes happening now. I'm going to choose not to pass judgment on whether it's a good thing that they happen here, but let's say they were choices, and 80s Bill Murray, I think, ate up those choices for better or for worse. So, yeah, things that were different.
The Jews taught me a word, schmuck. Can't say that anymore.
That made me laugh out loud.
Yeah. So yeah, I like having rigged questions because that way, when I write it, I can think about how I'm gonna respond to it and how I'm not gonna answer it. And I say, yeah, I don't think it is a lesser adaptation. I just don't really feel like, or a lesser, I don't know, based on, but I don't even know what the definition of an adaptation is. But we'll say some interpretation of the story. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's doing something different, and it's doing it in a very haphazard, kind of random, fun, zany, raunchy, almost kind of, I don't know, some kind of like that's in late 80s Bill Murray, like, you know, is kind of personified, and I think that is neat, I guess, but it's not like a direct interpretation. Like, I think it's a like a one-off, like you're scrolling on your various streaming services, and then you discover Scrooged on there, and you're like, oh yeah, Bill Murray's funny, and then you start playing it, and you think Bill Murray funny, and then I think that's basically what the goal of the movie was. So you can't really fault the film for doing that, and I think that is, I guess you could say it's not really an improvement, but it's definitely an acceptable modern take, because I think it works, and it works in a few ways, but those ways are not necessarily like, I don't know where I was going with that. but I'm just saying that Bill Murray basically is carrying the movie, pretty much is what I'm saying. And sure. I think that is, I wasn't like, picking up my cane and wagging it at the TV because it wasn't the Christmas Carol story I know and love. But I'm, there's so many like creative, funny moments, and the physical comedy is great, and especially on the set with that one woman getting completely pummeled, and then
the censor, yeah.
I will say, yeah. Like with Zach, with the Christmas present ghost, Carol Kane is better at like acting with physical comedy than she is with like actually acting and like reading her lines. But yeah, I think. The only thing I think is just so annoying is that, oh, this is just supposed to be ironic, or oh, this is supposed to be satirical, so that is like an automatic excuse that it's fine that this part of the movie is bad at adapting that part of the story. Like, oh, yeah, we didn't include that, or like, oh yeah, the Christmas future, Zach, the Christmas future. I can't say the other thing. Future. Yet to come. Just say
that's
future.
what it is in the book.
It's we're not talking about the book here.
Well,
Future.
I'm talking about the book. I read it
talking
every
about
year.
the movie. So like, sure, not having the spirit of the future for more than friggin' like 5 minutes is whatever, because it ends up working for the monologue, and then it's fine. So it's like everything just ends up being acceptable, and I don't think that that's an issue for me. But yeah, I mean, it's just a different way of doing it, and like it's kind of a standalone film, which is good, and we're kind of getting into an era now. Humanity is getting into an era where we can no longer have films that aren't connected to anything anymore. Even Oppenheimer has a sequel, and it's called Godzilla -1. And I will say that we're going to talk about Bill Murray's performance a little bit more. So Bill Murray said that being the meanest person in the world as Frank Cross was fun. He described his challenge as having an edge, but then completing Cross's transformation into a decent person at the end. He said being a decent person is not hard, but acting like one is, which is an interesting quote. So Donner constantly asked Murray to be louder and less subtle, like all the time. And Murray was very irritated. This was like the source of all of their conflicts on the set, were that Murray kept getting frustrated that he kept having to be told to be louder and annoying. So yeah, reception was completely divided on him being like a Scrooge adjacent character. Do you think that Bill Murray was a good choice? Like, do you think this film could have actually done better with the story that it had, and the production if like we didn't have Bill Murray? Because
I think that's an interesting. Oh, sorry, Mitchell, stepped on your.
No, I'm just saying Garfield lasagna.
Oh,
because I don't think Garfield could be Garfield without Bill Murray.
I do think I think Bill Murray was a legitimately good choice to play Garfield. I think he's like the only good choice in that movie. Those movies. But in terms of Scrooged, I think Bill Murray was a good choice, and it's interesting that you say that he was egged into being bigger and broader by Richard Donner, because Bill Murray has, for a long time, quite publicly wanted to be considered like a serious dramatic actor. Like, I think since even like there was an adaptation of The Razor's Edge that he was in, I think in like 1980, that was like a definite move towards drama for him. And I think he can play that. And I think he could have played like a dramatic Scrooge, but that's not really the point of the movie. And I do understand why Donner kind of egged him into that, because they were looking for that superstar vehicle. But kind of in regard to what you mentioned, Mitchell, where everything is kind of like laughed at, or everything's a joke and everything's kind of hand waved away. A Christmas Carol is remembered as this kind of like great festive story, but the actually, if you're gonna do the story itself, which I don't think this movie does, but if you're going to do A Christmas Carol, a pretty vital aspect of that story is that it's also, there are like strong elements of horror in that story, and it's holly jolly, but Scrooge also gets the Dickens scared out of him, and that's a vital point of the story. But when you have Bill Murray ad-libbing over everything, and it never really feels like he's all that afraid, it feels like he's acting afraid, but I'm never convinced that he's afraid. You don't quip, tomorrow's bad for me, Lou, when you're afraid of a ghost, which I do think kind of weakens the adaptation. But in terms of him as a choice for the character, I think it works. I mean, I buy him in that part. It did occur to me towards the end of this one, he doesn't really do anything all that bad in this movie. Like, he's a very disagreeable person, and he like acts very caustic and unlikably. But aside from firing Elliot, like the only thing that really needs adjustment is like his attitude. Like they go back into the past, and he never really does anything all that unforgivable that couldn't be changed by just like a slight adjustment of attitude. My point being, he doesn't feel as like crotchety as other Scrooges, and so I think a lot of that is down to Bill Murray's performance, and he has to act like a real jerk, or you're not really going to buy this guy as somebody who needs to be Scrooged. And I do think that works in the end. And I think he pulls off the flick at the end really well. Like Christian and I mentioned, and I would agree, I think the best part of the movie, probably in terms of it being like a film and that takes itself seriously, I would say the only bit that really takes itself seriously is the ending, where he delivers that monologue about what the season means and kind of generosity and extending that to other people and being hungry for that and greedy for that feeling of just sort of being a better person. I think that's really well delivered, and I think it's a good choice to have that be kind of the only part of the movie that chooses to set the jokes aside and deliver kind of the message. And I don't even hate the ad-libbed directions straight to audience during the sing-along portion. I think that's fun, and I think that works, even though I have heard people call that corny and dumb over the years.
I think it works too. Hearing that Donner kept telling him to go bigger makes a lot of sense now, and I think probably informed the deranged Murray take that I'm having. Yeah, very interesting. Though I would have expected that to be his choice, not Donner's, but it's very interesting to hear that. I think this film kind of has to be, if it's not Murray, it's a drastically different film, even with the same screenplay. And like Zach said, the structure is come see Bill Murray in this movie. He's the movie star leading this movie, so I don't know. It's hard to imagine with anyone else, but I think the biggest issue with him in this sort of Scrooge role and with how unlikable he is for a lot of the time, it's not just how bitter he is or mean to everyone. There's also an issue of his age, I think. I don't think there's a ton of time to display how he's gotten this way so quickly from his flashbacks with Karen Allen. How did he get so far gone so quickly? I guess the idea being, oh, this career position will eat you up or something. But I still think if you're looking at A Christmas Carol, there's this idea that Scrooge is like this very bitter old man who doesn't have much life left to live, and he's sort of lost his best chance at real love and romantic love anyway. And that's not as true for Murray here. So I think it's almost harder to feel bad for him because he still has so much ahead of him, and yet he's been through relatively less just by virtue of his youth. So there's less to sort of explain away or tolerate his cruelty to other people. But as far as we've addressed it as this sort of parody, heavy-handed comedy, I don't think it's as much of a problem for me.
I'd like to jump in here and mention his age, because we were talking about this before we started recording. I did the math while watching this movie to figure out how old he was at the various points, at least in Christmas Past. So when they go back to 55, he's 4 years old, which means he would have been born in 51. So by the time this movie is set in 88, Bill Murray is 37. Which, yes, that is young, and I would say, Christian, that, and there's even mention of, like, I'm the youngest network head that this business has ever seen. Which I think is an interesting new angle. We don't quite have the I've wasted my life angle, but we do have the, there's very much kind of material there and space there to see kind of how he loses his soul to get to that point. But when we go to Christmas Past, we see him at 17 during the Christmas party. This is another thing we discussed. Yes, Bill Murray is meant to pass for 17 years old during the Christmas Past party scene. If they were actually thinking about the age. And then when he's on Frisbee, he is 20. So there's a full 17 years of Christmas Past where we could have seen more in there. We could have seen him biting and clawing to get to the top. We could have seen him screwing people over. There's space in there, I think, to see more development of this kind of hard-bitten, bitter young man who kind of has this perspective of someone much older and more cynical than he really is. I think there is space in this narrative to see that. They just didn't show it to us, and I think that's kind of the missed opportunity, in the bit that doesn't work, rather than, oh, maybe he's a little too young. But I think it comes to the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like one of the things I was talking about with passing off the aspects of the book just for the sake of committing to the meme, as it were. And I think that, like, maybe you can just explain saying they were not like showing an actual progression. He kind of just, when you become a corporate executive for television, you instantly become a prick. It's like that, like basically that's what the message is. But that message is funny and maybe true. But so that's kind of what you can get from that, and I think that is funny. But yeah, I mean, it also means that there isn't any real character there, and it also means that we're basically watching him kind of like peruse through these like developmental opportunities and just be like standoffish, just be like current Bill Murray and younger Bill Murray, and just be like, I don't really care, and like, except now he's just saying things that are like massively mean. I mean, maybe he does that now too, I don't know. But like, but just is just like outwardly mean. But it is interesting that you pointed out, Zach, that he doesn't actually do anything bad. A lot of what Dickens's novel has, and what a lot of very accurate adaptations kind of portray, is the sheer impact and like how awful that people like Scrooge are when you think about the actual implications of what they've done. Mm-hmm. And in this, it's like it's all left to assumption, basically. Like everything is, whether it's just for comedic purposes or it's just lazy writing or both. I think it's probably a little bit of both, but I think that I guess in the film's kind of set a context for itself that it can work without having all that subtlety to a certain extent, and then eventually to a fault, because it makes you want to take things so much less seriously, and like, you know, I like there's a whole corporate angle that could have easily been pursued, just as like there's a corporate, or like not really a corporate, but like the Industrial Revolution angle of the novel and of like a lot of the other adaptations. Like having that background is pretty vital for like audience immersion and like, you know, historical context and socioeconomic context. All that is like makes the story so much better. But then we come back to the same conundrum again, because it's just a meme and we shouldn't be trying to say that it's a real adaptation. It just feels, it's hard to watch it and not think of all the things that are missing, I guess, is kind of where I'm getting at. But I will say that because Bill Murray is who he is, and because he's basically not acting at all, I think that the ad-libbing can really carry far when you have someone that's actually naturally funny playing as the character. And I think maybe there could have been other choices for the main character, but overall, I mean, what we got definitely works. And I think that framing the film around his reactions and his just standoffishness and cynicism is really like great. I think that's a great aspect, and I think that that's probably one of the main reasons why you wouldn't want to just turn this off like halfway through.
Yeah.
So I guess. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I was just going to tag on your point about the original book, and I know we've said that, you know, this movie is a joke. It's not really meant to be a direct adaptation of the novel, but I mean, thinking about it, in the original book, you don't see Scrooge do a ton of really awful things, but Scrooge's profession in and of itself kind of establishes that he's not a very good guy, because in the book, Scrooge is a moneylender. His entire purpose, like his whole job, his whole business is based on lending money to people who can't afford to give it back to him, and then he seizes their property or their homes and then sells that. So just what he does in the era that he does it makes him immediately like, oh wow, this is not a good person. Comparably, I mean, I guess it's the late 80s. I'm not fully up to date on my my dialogue around television in the late 80s, but and I guess it depends on your feelings on how television impacts society. But a TV executive in the late 80s, I mean, just his profession in and of itself is not necessarily as damaging and morally bankrupt as a man who exists to take your things away and destroy your life when you can't pay him on time.
Now hold on, Zach. Hold on. Wait a minute. he may be onto something here. Hold on. Wait. Let's check. Let's fact check this right now.
So I think I think they missed a potential beat going off this point in like the adaptation of Scrooge that they're making, actually. Because you could, I think, emphasize like what Frank is doing is not good for society if his adaptation of Scrooge was just the most morally reprehensible thing you've ever seen. But aside from the dancers whose nipples you can see, it seems like a pretty normal adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
And the one woman that has a heart attack watching the ad.
Especially given the ad that he makes for it, where it's like, I would be disappointed if I saw that ad and I tuned into this adaptation. So yeah, I think that's kind of a missed beat, and you really could have made this like A Christmas Carol from hell, the adaptation he's trying to make. But yeah, other than the scandalous dancers, it's mostly pretty normal, honestly.
Yeah. I didn't have anything else planned. Oh, I'll have here's a fun fact. You know, I like pulling my fun facts from very verifiable quality sources. So filming began on December 7th, 1987. With Christmas approaching, Donner asked Paramount if they could have the Christmas day off. And they refused and insisted that they have to film on Christmas Day. So Donner fired the entire cast and crew, and then 2 days later he rehired everyone just so they could go home on Christmas.
That's really cool.
The irony is literally infinite. It keeps going. it goes well beyond the film, and I think that's pretty interesting. Are there any supporting characters that really stick out? I know ScarJo's dad is probably one of the best performances in the film, in my opinion. I just think he's a really fun character. I think he like Christian mentioned, the makeup. I think this actually won a nomination for best makeup in whatever the hell awards thing it was for, but Beetlejuice beat it, and I think that's probably fair. But yeah, I thought like the makeup was great. I mean, he had the most screen time out of all the ghosts, and I think he was really impactful, and he set the ball forward. Like, I think he had some of the best. I think Bill Murray and him; those were like some of my favorite scenes from the film. But what do you guys think?
I mean, we've mentioned that Karen Allen is great. I don't think her character doesn't really do much in this movie, and she's a fairly typical love interest, but she just kind of embodies that character with such sweetness. That you really do buy the relationship, and I was surprised at how natural and comfortable their relationship in the past seems. They seem like very cute together, which it was surprising to me because Bill Murray seems like a difficult person to have chemistry with.
with a
seems like he would be
turtleneck
kind of a
and
jerk
hair.
on set. But yeah, like little things like, oh, I've never liked a girl enough to give her 12 sharp knives. Like that's things like that are very funny and sweet in those scenes. Bobcat Goldthwait is great. In the past, I have found him annoying in things, but in this movie, I think he's very funny. And in this movie in particular, he reminds me so much of Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like season 3, 4 territory Charlie. In places it's like spitting image.
Yeah. That's so great. Oh my gosh. I like him so much more now. You stole my exact, I was going to say like note for note, everything you said about Karen Allen down to there's like this very authentic sweetness, and admittedly her character doesn't have a ton of substance beyond her relationship to Bill Murray. But her flashback sequences with him are great. And the gift sequence is probably the best one, but also their sort of first meeting when they like keep hitting each other in the head, and the cliche of like running into someone and them dropping all their things and you help them pick it up, I thought was executed in a very enjoyable way.
Yeah, I'll say that she's probably like the only real reason that you can believe that there will be a redemption arc for Frank at all, just because like her instant investment in him and being like, why are you so mean? And he's just like absolutely just verbally slandering everybody, like to the fullest extent, screaming at them, just being like the worst person ever. And I think that is probably, even though it's somewhat unfortunate that she has to be defined by his character, I think there's a lot. I think she's the source of a lot of the film's subtlety in general. There's a lot of things that you can assume about her comfortably, and that make her a very credible love interest. And I think that ultimately is like one of the most believable things. And when she comes to the set, I think that was like, I'm totally buying this kind of thing for the most part. I mean, you know, but like I think, compared to everything else that's going on, and like, you know, the what's it called, what's the name of the song at the end, just having everyone joining in, whatever that's called, like I think that was, even though it's somewhat cliche, I think it really works in favor of the monologue and for the overall message.
Yeah, only bit I don't quite buy their romance is at the end when Frank has to literally drag her on camera while she's going, no, stop.
Also, after very much enjoying his kiss with the backup dancer 2 minutes ago.
Nah, 88 was a different time. It's a mistletoe, it's the rule.
it's a federal law,
Yeah, state too, possibly. But yeah, so any other final thoughts? I guess, you know what? I'll do one more thing. Do you guys think that would you, if you had to choose something related to the Christmas Carol story, and you had to choose between your least favorite Christmas Carol? No. I'll say it. Your least favorite Christmas Carol or Scrooged, which one would you choose? If we were in Christian's basement and we were all limited on time and we had to watch it together, which one would you choose?
I guess I've got to think about my least favorite Christmas Carol. I would choose this over a couple adaptations of A Christmas Carol. I know we covered it during the first holiday specials. I would probably choose this over the Patrick Stewart version, if I'm honest.
You suck.
That's one that has never vibed with me. I might choose this over the George C. Scott version. George C. Scott's great in that version, but I don't think that one is particularly well made. Yeah, I do think this holds up next to some other versions of the story.
Nice.
Oh well, the agreeability is gonna dive out the window because I would choose this over the one that we watched. Was it called Scrooge?
The Albert Finney one? Or no, not Albert Finney. That's the 71.
Alistair
Sim, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Which literally appears on television in this film.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
it's
you're
not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just
I hate you
I
too.
think it's just at a point in time where it doesn't offer enough to me to get past the I don't know, the way that more contemporary things have obliterated my attention span and whatnot. I don't really dislike. I have yet to find a Christmas Carol adaptation that I actively dislike. Even that, and the Patrick Stewart version, and even the Mickey Mouse version. And you know, I will say rather controversially, I do like the Muppet Christmas Carol quite a bit. I think it's to the point where it's gotten a little bit overrated, and I don't know that is like the definitive Christmas Carol adaptation that many people seem. I feel like every year more people are like, it's the best Muppet movie and the best Christmas Carol, and I don't know that either of those are true, even though I do like it.
Yeah, that's because it has Muppets, and this frustrates me every year. My mother and my sister will only watch the Muppet Christmas Carol because they don't like A Christmas Carol. They like the Muppets. So for so many people, it's more a matter of, I don't really care for that story, but I like the Muppets and I like the jokes in that movie. So that's the best version. Yeah. This has been my soapbox moment.
It's the best version because I've already I've already in my own headcanon I have established it is the only adaptation.
Yeah.
Okay, well I'll say I haven't. So there's the 2019 one with Guy Pearce, and I think I haven't seen that one yet. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
That
so
one
I
is
can't speak for that one.
weird. Yeah, it's basically not like that. Yeah, that one's made by the guy who made Peaky Blinders, and Scrooge is like way too far gone in that one, where by the end you're like, I don't know if I want to see this guy redeemed.
Yeah, I would see this over. It's hard to say I would see it over the 30s one because there are redeemable qualities, but like, you know, the 30s one is like, it's just it's like totally dark, and you know, I don't know. I would probably watch the 30s one. I think I changed my mind on that. I will say definitely the George C. Scott one. I would see Scrooged over that for sure. The George C. Scott one is I completely forget about it all the time, and I'd probably see this over the Zemeckis animated one. I'd probably even though that one, you know, it's got some good you know, little bits in there, and I think for an animated movie, I think it's really great, and I think there are a lot of good, like, creative, you know, like digitally rendered stuff in it, but I don't think, you know, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's that good, to be honest. But yeah. So it's probably those. That was an interesting question.
Yeah.
Good job, Mitchell. Good job. That was a great, interesting question. We all found out we all disagree, and we all hate each other.
This is
now.
true. Cookie Pocket. We all disagree.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Zach. I don't know about that. I don't know. But
Cookie Pocket. We disagree with Zach.
Yeah, we disagree with Zach. I didn't mention Danny Elfman, but I mean Zach kind of mentioned it in his opener. But I'm like every time a Danny Elfman music composed movie is on, I ask my mom who it is, and she usually gets it right. It's like the kid chorus and the crescendos, and that's funny. But I think it totally works. I don't think he was like, I would have thought that he was used a lot more, but I mean it was sparsed out very well, and I think it was nothing like Batman or Spider-Man or any Tim Burton movie. I think it did not take over too much for me.
Yeah, the opening, well, the choral section, which pops up at a few places, sounds a lot like a couple tracks from Batman Returns. But other than that, it's not, it doesn't feel all that Elfman-y or Burton-y.
It's the Christmas part of it, probably, for me. If anything's Christmas and I hear kids choir, it's freaking Batman Returns. So that was it for my final thoughts. If you guys have anything else.
There's a great little moment that I always laugh in this where Frank and the Ghost of Christmas Past are watching Claire and Frank meet for the first time, and Frank in the past cracks a joke about like, well, I'll walk on the other side of the street if you go to the store all the time, and Christmas Past and Frank go bump 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 at the same time. I don't know, it's a great little actor beat that I'm sure was improv that I think is very funny and charming. That's my final thought on Scrooge.
Nice.
Right on. My funny moment, I was chatting with Zach a bit about this before we started recording, is when towards the beginning they mentioned that they spent $40 million on a live TV show. Like, it's the craziest thing. And nowadays it's become somewhat common for Disney Plus to spend that type of cash. I think they spent over $30 million on a single episode of She-Hulk, for example.
Oh, jeez, wow.
That was even funnier to me, knowing that is a reality in some ways. Cool.
Well, now what do we do?
Yeah, weekend review, I guess.
Sure. Go ahead.
And we didn't discuss if anybody's going on a new tour through some form of cinema, so that'll be an interesting thing to bring up maybe next season. Who knows?
We have to suss that out. Yeah.
Well, a week or at least a couple months in review. What to discuss? I could talk about the Doctor Who 60th anniversary episodes which I finished watching this morning.
Boo.
I could talk about the Doctor Who book I finished reading this morning.
Boo.
I could talk about something that isn't Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But in the spirit of the season, I think I'll talk about the most recent festive thing that I watched, which was yesterday. If you follow my movies I have watched with my girlfriend list on Letterboxd, by the time this episode comes out,
that's like my favorite list of all time, man.
you'll be aware of this already. But yesterday I watched Scrooge with my girlfriend, appropriately enough, given this episode, the 1970 adaptation with Albert Finney. It's a British adaptation and it's a musical, and it's a lot of fun. This is obviously before, they could comp in their extras or do anything all that kind of visually wondrous with their effects. So, all the dancers have to be right there on these big sets that they built. And it's pretty spectacular. The songs themselves, like the lyrics, are a little mediocre. It's all kind of in good fun, and it's very silly, and it's a good Christmas Day movie. I often put this on after we've opened all the presents and my mother's making French toast on Christmas morning. But the lyrics themselves are sort of, they're okay, they're passable, except for the song "Thank You Very Much," which is sang in the segment of the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. There's a big musical number where Scrooge is dead, and all of the people who owe him money sing a song where they thank him for dying because it's the nicest thing he's ever done in his life. And the lead singer in the song dances on his coffin throughout the entire number as they lead a parade through the streets of London. And that song is fantastic. It's by far the best song in the film. And it's got a great cast, and it looks fantastic. When I first saw this a couple years ago, I thought, well, 5 out of 5, this is my favorite Scrooge. But now that I've sat with it a little longer and seen it a few more times, I think, it's a good movie. It's an okay movie. I think I like it a little more than Scrooged, but it is still a 3 out of 5. But if you haven't seen it, I do recommend checking it out for yourself, because I would certainly say of the adaptations of A Christmas Carol, it's probably one of the most fun. It's not heavy on kind of the spooky, gloomy stuff that I like in other adaptations. It's very big on sort of the dancing and prancing about and the Christmas merriment.
Very nice.
Fun.
In the spirit of the season, I will also choose a Christmas-adjacent film. Over my Thanksgiving break, I got to sort of reconnect with my immediate family, and we saw The Holdovers in theaters. And I think that's still showing in enough places that you could probably catch it if you try when this episode comes out. Hopefully, it really ought to stay out through the Christmas holiday, because that's when it's set, not Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I hope so.
But I was quite impressed by this, and I think the trailer kind of tells you pretty completely what you're in for here. And there's this fun cast of 3 leads: Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa, who's a first-time actor in a film, who does, I think, an amazing job with that in mind. And someone I talked about a while ago on Week in Review, Divine Joy Randolph, who I cited as being my favorite performer in the High Fidelity TV reboot with Zoe Kravitz.
Wow.
She's the Jack Black stand-in, sort of, in that reboot. And she's playing a very different role here, a grieving mother and someone that works at the school where this takes place. But, of course, the title over The Holdovers is in reference to students that have to stay on campus at this private school over the holiday, over the Christmas holiday, for some family reason, be it that their family is overseas and the travel isn't feasible, or maybe they're getting punished by their parents, or some other reason. I don't want to give everything away, but and Paul Giamatti plays this rather curmudgeonly teacher who would rather not be saddled with the job of looking after the kids that have to stay, but he is. And what follows is just an immensely enjoyable, I think, a new Christmas classic. I gave it a 4.5. I was very charmed by it. and the director Alexander Payne seems to have put a lot of effort into making this aesthetically the way that a film like this would have been made in the 90s or even further in the past. There's some like added film grain stuff, especially towards the beginning, and it's very old-fashioned in an inviting way. And I would recommend this to pretty much everyone. It's being received very warmly by critics and by audiences, and I wish it were sort of more broadly marketed. I understand why it isn't in today's cinema market, but it's really great. It's hard for me to think of somebody that would actively dislike it, so I highly recommend it.
Well, we'll stay in the spirit of the season then.
I have a feeling we're not going to stay in the spirit of the season.
Why would I ever do that, Christian? Why? Okay, now you're making me angry. Why would you say that, okay? How does Godzilla -1 not have anything to do with Christmas?
Yep. There you go. I was right.
It's a Christmas movie if you really think about it.
I'm really thinking it. I'm not sure. But
I could not possibly watch this and not talk about it on Cookie
Oh,
Bucket.
sure.
Like,
yeah.
Come on now. Come on. I'm not silly, okay? This was amazing. This was an amazing Godzilla movie, but to be honest with you, it really was an amazing movie in general. Like just a general story about trauma, and it has plenty of amazing context, and it is really a character-driven movie by actors I have maybe seen once or twice in other things, but for the most part, pretty much no names, at least to me. So as an American audience member, eating my flamin' hot Cheeto popcorn, and I think I'm so surprised. First of all, the budget is insanely low. Like you had mentioned, She-Hulk was $30 million an episode. I think this was $35 million.
15.
I believe.
Oh my!
15 million
15
for the whole movie.
What?
Yeah.
Oh well, by golly jeepers, there you go. So this is probably this is the greatest discrepancy example I can think of when it comes to quality versus budget. And I think, paying the actors breadcrumbs, Chick-fil-A sandwiches, I think maybe that's the goal. That's it, Zach. You're on the right track, right? I think.
Well, speaking of which, I did do that once, and Christian would know.
Yeah. The acting in here is phenomenal, and it's not. There's a lot of cultural beats that I was like not necessarily familiar with, and there's a lot of like, I guess there's stereotyping where Japanese people are like very dramatic and change moods very quickly, and that kind of reflects in a lot of their media, especially in anime. And that for me takes me way off guard, and a lot of times it actually takes me out of the story. I don't know. Sometimes that is the fault of the media. Sometimes it's the fault of me. But I think in this case, it did not distract me at all. There's a lot of really impactful, emotional conversations that did not feel out of place in this. There's a real like story about family here, and it's all about Dom Toretto's family. And I think that having like the distress of Godzilla in a modern interpretive context, if that makes sense, really works here, because there's it's historical revisionism. It's kind of called revisionism, but it's not really revising anything. It's just a re-looking back at like what was the impact of the bombs in Japan. And this is like a completely different, in a lot of ways, it's a completely different way of looking at it compared to the original Godzilla. There's basically no blame placed on Americans in this at all. A lot of the blame is actually placed on the Japanese government. But at the end of it, it does not feel like a targeted film. It doesn't feel like a pointing the finger at you for letting this happen type thing. This film is literally just an inspirational, patriotic film about citizens and citizen soldiers coming together and like defeating this massive enemy. And it's like it's a great message that's completely unexpected. You would not at all, especially being monarch versed, punched in the face by Legendary for God knows how many years. It's very refreshing. And trying to watch the new Monarch show after this was like impossible because my dad and I were like, we just came out of the theater like this is bad. we can't watch this right now. We were watching a real human story amongst some pretty great effects. Now obviously it's not like, you know, Marvel at their peak. Well, now this was better than the freaking Marvel. Okay, this was better than the MCU crap that's been being produced as of recent anyway. And I think, it's like there's goofy CGI tank scenes here and there, but it does not take you out of it at all. I mean, our lead actor is Koichi. I'm not going to try to freaking pronounce all the actors' names, but who plays Koichi, the main character, is great. His girlfriend that he hangs out with the whole time and has the kid and everything, she's a great actor. The kid is a great actor, crying on command, very unheard of in the industry. So I just think it's just a great Godzilla movie. He freaking destroys stuff. I'm like, wow, can't believe he actually did that. It's like watching Jurassic Park for the first time type of vibes in the beginning. And I highly recommend anyone that's at all interested in it. And it's probably it's the Godzilla film that most returns to a lot of the classics messaging. And there's actually nods constantly throughout the film, direct references to the original. And obviously the score, I mean, like, I'm totally hype at the end, you know.
Yeah.
That was perfectly inserted. That could have been bombed. That could have been really bad. Like, using iconic scores like that, you got to be really, really particular, and it was perfectly used. I totally really loved it. But you can give your opinion too, Zach, real quick.
Some great score from, like, they didn't just keep it to the original, because I also saw this film. I'm less vocal about this on this podcast, but I am also a very big Godzilla fan. They used some score from Mothra versus Godzilla as well, which was like so well inserted.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I said this in my Letterboxd review, but like, I think this is the only time in a Godzilla film where I've been kind of legitimately frightened of Godzilla, because in this, he doesn't have like a personality. He's not like fun. He's just a giant animal that you can't stop. And if he's going to walk through that building and kill you and your family, he doesn't care. He's just gonna do it. Like, you are gnats to him, and it really harnessed kind of that almost like eldritch horror of feeling so much smaller than something that can squish you like a bug and not even notice. Very good movie. I'm gonna echo all of Mitchell's praises. It's getting the showings are getting extended in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little worried this was going to be like Shin Gojira from 2016, where that had like a week-long limited screening as a Fathom event in the U.S. I went to see it on like a Thursday night, and then it was gone. But this is doing pretty well here and is getting bigger screens. And I heard about, I think one of our local theaters here at least today switched Godzilla -1 to the big screen and pushed like the Marvels all the way down to the end of the hallway.
That's crazy.
And
That's
I love to hear that. So.
I will say also, I literally remember every character. I watched it once and I remember every single character. There's the doc, there's the kid, there's the guy that criticizes the government the whole time that's on the ship.
Yes.
And there's the lady that's like very critical that lived next door to Koichi's family that takes care of the kid and everything. There's the kid, there's the girl, there's the mechanic that from the event on the island. There's everybody. I remember everybody. The admiral. Okay, it's crazy that there's not any more films that haven't figured out this formula yet. That you can take from stereotypes and make them into actual believable characters, because they are based on they're stereotypical characters in the story if you really think about it. But they're fantastic at acting. They have very important reasons to be there. Every single character is important. Like, you never get that anymore, and it's just super refreshing to see it, and to see it in a Godzilla movie. Like on top of that, it lends so much to it. Like, to see Godzilla freaking wrecking everything. Like, it is it literally felt like as if I was seeing the original Godzilla in theaters the first time, is what I would imagine it was like, because this was genuinely horrifying and awesome. And the ending, controversial, but otherwise, we'll leave that to the winds.
Maybe we can talk about that in more detail whenever we do Godzilla -1 on the show, which I'm sure will happen. I feel like we should. Yeah. So, hi, Christian.
Still haven't seen any Godzilla media in any form.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. I based on this movie, Godzilla -1, I might reshuffle my schedule and put the original in next season's lineup for me.
That's a good.
I might fast track that, because that was going to be a last season choice for me, and then none of my guests picked it. But this time I might go against my 10-year plan and move it up a few seasons.
10-year economic plan.
I would encourage that. I know there are at least a couple actors that overlap from some of Kurosawa's films into those.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Cool. Oh, and now it's time. Oh wait, I'm not running anymore.
No,
what is
I'm running.
We're running after Zach.
Run.
Go.
Yes.
Run.
Go.
Run. Run.
The ghosts are
We're
gonna
gonna
get
send
you.
you home to mother in a cardboard box.
All right.
Oh man.
We got a minute to run down. If you don't know about this, it's probably because you're a friend from the military and you just started listening to this. Because I have probably a lot more audience members now. Because they're like, hey, I started listening to your podcast. I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah, a minute. Run down. Say things from film. Zach respond with number. And that's about it. I guess, Christian, you decide who goes first.
You go first.
Aye. Okay. I'm ready.
Should I time it or should you time it?
You should time it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Sussy Christmas present ghost.
3 out of 5.
Santa's Workshop Armory.
4 out of 5.
The night the reindeer died.
4 out of 5.
Bob Goulet's Old Fashioned Cajun Christmas.
4 out of 5.
IBC, you will love it.
3 out of 5.
Father Loves Beaver.
4 out of 5.
Scrooge promo.
2 out of 5.
Children Love an Acrobat.
2 out of 5.
Mary Lou Retton as Tiny Tim.
3 out of 5.
Spending $40 million on a live TV show.
3 out of 5.
Feeding the starving musicians.
3 out of 5.
Acid Rain.
2 out of 5.
Drug addiction.
1 out of 5.
International Terrorism.
1 out of 5.
Freeway killers.
1 out of 5.
Bill Murray profiling a small child.
2 out of 5.
Vodka poisoned by Chernobyl.
3 out of 5.
Karen Allen is the one that got away.
3 out of 5.
1 second.
I'm here and I got a problem. Oh, don't respond,
That's a
Zach.
good one.
Yes, you heard it here. I approve of acid rain more than international terrorism and freeway killings.
What other type of terrorism is there these days?
I don't feel like this is the place to discuss that.
This is the place. What's in Cookie Pocket does not stay in Cookie Pocket. We are recording. Who is previewing? I think it is.
I think it'll be you, Christian, next.
Christian.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. Well, I made it a point last season to focus on films that I had not seen yet because I kept talking about my old favorites over and over again, and it got a little tiresome. So I'm trying to extend that to this year's holiday special. So this will be the first time that I've chosen a holiday special that is a film I haven't already seen. And this film is Meet Me in St. Louis, one of the two. I don't know. It's a Judy Garland musical from a long time ago. I'm not sure. I think directed by Minnelli, who directed An American in Paris, among other things. And
who's in Paris?
I saw it. Sorry?
No, never mind.
No?
No,
No? Oh,
that was a joke. I'm not.
It was on the calendar for the Cleveland Cinematheque this month, and the current president of the Cinematheque wrote a pretty long, rousing thing about how it was a personal favorite of his, and how the lead character's quandary of choosing to stay at home or leave sort of helped inform his own career decisions. And I don't know. I was moved by that premise, and it seems like something I'll like. And they're showing it in 35 millimeter in Cleveland pretty soon. So
Yay!
I thought, why not? So you guys don't get to see it in 35 millimeter, but I do. So.
I get to see it on
But we'll talk about it next time.
on a week-long free max deal. So, you know.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, this has been episode, I looked it up, 104.
Yep.
104.
Wow.
We are now in the episodes that sound like radio stations. So we'll be in 105.3 Light FM, Christian night in St. Louis next time. Thank you all. Happy holidays. Keep the train chugging and cut down the Christmas trees and drink the hot chocolate and spend too much on peppermint mocha from Starbucks. Why don't you? I guess we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
So long.
Bye.